do transfer. If you teach a kid what a sentence is, you teach them where the capital letter goes, where the period goes, and which is the focus in second grade, teaching them sentence structure, paragraph writing, putting their thoughts together, organizational structure, organizing their stories, paragraphs, things like that. If you teach them about the pilgrims and social studies, if you teach them about science, what weighs more, a rock or a feather, all that, once they learn between piedra and rock, once they learn the difference, sure, that transfer. That absolutely positively transfers. There is no doubt. I've seen it. I see it in my classroom every day. As far as transferring, yeah, it goes straight through. ESL, we do teach the kids ESL. We teach them every day. That is mandated. We have to teach them 3 things every day: ESL, PE of all things, and language arts, which are the 3 things that are the focus in our bilingual classroom. As far as leaving our school, I work at Belvedere Elementary, and as far as I know, at Belvedere Elementary, which also feeds into Garfield High School, which is where you were principal of, our kids will learn, will leave our school with a knowledge of Spanish, ability to write, to read, and understand Spanish, and they do leave our school with the ability to write and read and understand English. They are better prepared to go into junior high. Now, the focus is, are there some kids that do not reach that goal? Sure there are. There are some kids that do not reach that goal, just like they would have if it was not a bilingual program. If they would have, the issues are a lot more than just a bilingual program. They will have gone through, I mean, there's problems in the neighborhood, there's problems in the area, there's social economic issues that come up. And some of those kids, and I have them in my classroom, I see them every day, no matter what I do, I can sit there and try to do backflips to teach them how to do math or something. They have learning disabilities, they have psychological problems, they have emotional problems, and that stems not from the bilingual program itself, but from other factors that affect the community in which we live.
Maribel, let me get you into the conversation here. You're from MALDEF, and so you're neither an educator in this particular vein on either side of this issue, but you're kind of illustrate, or at least point for our viewers, what is MALDEF's concern about this particular issue, and what do you see as the heart of the issue?
First of all, as you pointed out earlier, just with regards to the conversation that was taking place, right now, by law, school districts, schools are required to teach children English. That's not even the issue. By law, schools are required to teach children English. Everyone agrees children should learn English. That is not the issue. From MALDEF's perspective, Proposition 227 is very dangerous. As Xavier mentioned, first of all, it strips school districts and parents of the right to select the program that best fits the needs of their student population. This initiative is intended to affect over 1.4 million children throughout the state of California. We're talking about rural communities, we're talking about inner cities, elementary schools, high schools. We're talking about differences that are tremendous, and that school districts that have spent years developing a curriculum that's effective in teaching their students English and making sure that they advance academically, they're going to be dismantled completely. Not only bilingual education, but all current language development programs that are working, that have proven that to teach students English. Proposition 227 will eliminate that. We're also extremely concerned about the lawsuit that you mentioned. Any teacher who refuses to teach only in English, any teacher who tries to explain to a child a math problem, for example, can be sued by any parent or guardian. That is for attorney's fees. They will be personally liable. That's certainly a disincentive to bring in qualified teachers. And finally, this is a very costly initiative. It calls for retention of all current funding for bilingual education. So taxpayers will not save a penny because we're going to retain it. The initiative specifically says it. But it takes $50 million a year for 10 years from the General Education Fund. That makes no sense.
I want to come back to the 50 million and the whole cost issue, but I want to stay with the, with the content, the idea of the program here. And Henry, I noticed you shaking your head about the when Maribel mentioned the idea of the lawsuits and the teachers would be exposed to lawsuits.
Look, let's put it this way. The initiative clearly states that the teacher, if any teacher or if any district administrator, principal, or superintendent, if they continually refuse to implement 227, then there'll be litigation. But It says that a teacher must overwhelmingly teach in English. That is not what's being done right now, particularly in the elementary schools. So if you teach overwhelmingly in English, it does not say there that you can use Spanish or American Sign Language as the two language of this country, or use French or German or anything to embellish the course, to enrich the course, to make it more interesting. If you have this fear that a teacher will be sued if she says a word or two, I mean, that's not what the initiative says. Anything to teach the kid, but instruction, the books, the lessons, the tests themselves will be in English, and that's what we want.
Let me ask this question, though. It seems to me that there's some break in the logic here that I hear, at least in the numbers, because on the one hand, you know, I hear that that bilingual teachers are underrepresented in the teaching population. And then you're saying now that the predominant language that education is taught in for these students is Spanish.
Yes.
So, I mean, how do you reconcile the fact that we don't have enough Spanish teachers, but the predominant teaching is done in Spanish, therefore we need the initiative?
The problem is, for those that are teaching right now, this is what they rely on. The lesson plans are in Spanish. I have visited them. Some of them are not doing a very good job because they don't have that kind of skill to be able to teach both languages well. And therefore the kid, after 2 or 3 years, ends up not learning either language well. See, the situation is, in a true bilingual class, like we were mentioning before, and there are some here in the state of California, true bilingual classes cost money. The teachers must be well educated in both languages. Kids spend more time because it takes twice as long to teach both languages to a student, particularly when you're beginning to teach subject matter content. The problem is that after the first few years, this doesn't become cost effective. If a person were in junior high or in high school, it would be impossible to teach bilingual biology. You'd have to teach it in regular biology in English. The problem comes in, though, if a person has not learned by the time he's in high school to properly read and write and speak in English, there is no way these counselors are going to put him into chemistry or physics. That was wrong with Garfield High School.
Well, let me ask, because the question, it seems to me, it begs the question that is this a language problem, or is this an under-resourced problem? And, you know, if as Xavier had said and Maribel and Jose say, that it takes 3 to 4 years, how come we can't get it done in the 3 to 4 year period, which would be elementary school ideally, and then you make the transition to English, and you put the resources in the first 4 to 5, even 6 years, so that you do have well-trained teachers?
I understand, but the biggest problem is that it doesn't transfer that readily when the kids are brought up this way, when you give primary instruction in their native language. That's been the problem. They don't transfer over. In other words, you have to kind of go over and repeat it again, and by that time you've lost these 3 or 4 years. They become critical. And it's all research shows that it could be done easier as they're younger.
How do you know it doesn't? I mean, I'm just trying to follow the logic. Wait. I'm just trying to follow the logic here. So we have programs that are under-resourced. We have programs that have teachers that are under-trained, that are teaching bilingual education, and the conclusion you're reaching is that bilingual education doesn't transfer. But how can you say that if those other factors that are broken are also in the environment? How do you get a clean evaluation of what works and doesn't?
I think you want me to say this, and I'll say it because I've said it before. Bilingual education, as a part of the total educational system that this country, you know, gives our students, is not the major issue that's causing the problems of our kids not being well educated. You and I know it's rigor, it's attendance policies, it's the gang related, it's the kids not wanting to go to school, it's parents that can't have that hold on their kids. There's a lot of it. It's forcing kids not to take these other classes by not giving them the rigor that is necessary to move in these classes, or giving them choice. It's the grad requirements that require 2 years of graduation, 2 years of mathematics in high school to graduate, without stipulating what those 2 years will be. So they take it in consumer math, baby math, ridiculous math. They don't take it in algebra, geometry, or where it should be. Those are, I think, the main problems in education. I'm a curriculum specialist. I got my doctorate in that. However, that's not on the ballot right now. What is on the ballot is bilingual ed, and that is a portion that drastically interferes, in my point of view, and in the years that I've had experience, which interferes with a person also progressing in learning English well enough to be able to succeed.
Go ahead, Maribel.
I think he just said it beautifully. There are so many problems, and we need to fix our public education. And what is on the ballot on June 2nd is Proposition 227, a proposition, an educational requirement that will sweep across California with no research, no educational basis. The initiative, in fact, to further illustrate how unsound this initiative is and what chaos it'll cause, this initiative permits school districts to mix children of different ages and different grade levels in one classroom, with the only restriction being their level of fluency. There is no restriction in terms of age. These students will not receive the academic curriculum that it'll take to take the calculus and the algebra to go on to college.